Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's been a hot minute since I've done one of these guest appearances or guest interviews or whatever you want to call it. But I love having amazing guests on. You guys know I like to bring on people that I know, that I trust, that I work with, that I've seen the work that they do. So it's not like I'm just pulling people out of thin air or random. I've known Lynn for a very long time. I trust the work she does, the integrity, authenticity, you guys know the spiel, right? All the things that are really important to me. So, Lynn, welcome to the show. Welcome to this interview with me. I'm excited to dive into this. So, you guys also know I don't like the formal introductions. However, I'm going to let Lynn introduce herself really quickly so that you guys know who she is. Again, you know me, I only bring on people that I know and trust. So, Lynn, tell us a little bit about you and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jennifer. And I'm so excited to be here. This is really a great opportunity. And just a great opportunity to talk about what I do, what you do, and how we mesh. But I am the owner founder of Life Energy Transformations. That name came to me about 14 years ago in the middle of the night for my business. I am a certified life coach. I'm a Reiki master. I do public speaking and I hold virtual workshops and really work with women who are in transitional periods and help them reclaim that self-worth, that self-love, and really live their authentic lives. So,
Yeah, I love that. And of course, that's why we resonate, right? Because
yes,
it's all about women helping women, and not that we don't want to help the guys. We can help the guys too. However, it's just
yes,
because we're women, we know how to speak to other women and we know what they're going through. So I love
exactly.
that. And I love the idea of life energy because we're coming into a time in history, we'll say, where people are really understanding energy on a new level. So again, intuitively, I love that you downloaded that. Everything that I've done throughout my business is the same, right? It's always intuition. And I feel like a lot more people are even waking up to that. So if we look at life energy transformations, let's just get into that a little bit and share about like how the work you do, why you got here. Um, you guys know me, secret, psychic, Christian, all the things. It makes such a an interesting story to put all that together. And then you go through your own like trials and your own insecurities and those kind of things. And as women, we need to really look at, who are we really? Are we taking care of ourselves in a way that honors because we can't pour from an empty cup? We all have heard that. And I know that a lot of the work you do hits on some of those same notes. And it just gets me excited to hear other women talking about this. And you guys know my interviews are always so laid back. It's like a casual conversation. Join in the conversation. When you see this video, comment. We'll respond to you. We do our best to stay interactive within this, right? Even though it's a recording and you're seeing the interview maybe later, it doesn't matter. Whenever you see it is the right time for you. So drop a comment, ask a question, find us on the socials. We're happy to help with whatever questions come up for you as we go through this. But Lynn, for you, how did you get into this? We'll just start there.
Great question. And it's funny that you asked that right now because I actually gave a talk about this, about my spiritual journey for a group that is promoting women's voices. So
Mhm.
this is really near and dear to my heart is my story and how did I get into this? Honestly, I've had knowing since I was a child. I heard a wolf howl when I was no more than 3 years old and asked my mom the next morning what that was. And she said, "Oh, that's our family sign as to when somebody's passed away." And so we talked about that and she explained it to me. And then in high school, I knew when one of my friends had unfortunately, you know, tried to take a handful of pills. I heard her in my ear as I laid down that night and just said a prayer that God watch over her, and then the next morning found out what had happened. So I've always had this. I've always had my gifts and the intuition and the knowings. And I also got sober when I was 21 years old. And when I did, obviously, or maybe not so obviously to some, the the barriers and all of the coping mechanisms that I was using to cover up my intuition disappeared. right? Because I was completely open and vulnerable. And so I had a great aunt that actually helped me understand how my Christian background could translate into what was happening to me. And she explained what was going on, and she mentored me for a couple of years before she passed, long distance. And I just literally, this was back in the 90s, right? I just started picking up books. I would go to bookstores and books would literally jump off the shelf at me. And so I started reading about angels and about Native American Indian culture that I was very drawn to, and metaphysics and conversations with God. And you name it. I read all the hits, right, of the 90s, the Celestine Prophecy series, all of that. And as I started reading and as I started meditating, spiritual mentors would come into my life at
Mm,
different points. And so eventually in my late 20s, I started doing readings. And then I was attuned to Reiki and started doing energy sessions. And it's taken off since then. However, that was kind of a closeted thing that I was doing on the side, right? And I still had my 9 to 5 jobs. I was building a career. I was doing everything else that what I thought a normal human was supposed to do so that I could still fit in this world. And what I've learned over time is that I'm not meant to fit in and be normal. I'm meant to be me. And
mm,
so I had to go through a whole process and my own journey of learning who I am and loving myself for me, regardless of what anyone else thought.
mm.
Which, when I was certified to be a life coach, I was still going through some of those lessons. And so I've basically lived what I'm coaching on and what I'm helping women with. So,
Which is, I think, sometimes more powerful, right? Like
yeah.
when you've gone through it, you can speak to it in a different way than somebody that hasn't. There's so many things in that I want to touch on. I want to talk a little bit about the Reiki, and I want to talk about hiding ourselves, and I want to talk about the uniqueness because I really feel like these big changes that we've been going through, right? Astrologically, as a collective, like we can look at it from any angle that you want. People awakening to like human design and things that we've never heard of before, right? Like there's so many
Yeah.
different ways to come into a new understanding and a new awareness. Even in Christianity, like I'm seeing people looking at it and understanding it and discerning it in a whole new way, which is so exciting for me because I've always read the Bible, but from an intuitive lens. And there was sometimes where I was be like, well, what if we go this way? What if we look at it this way? What if we go a little bit deeper? And I'm forever like cross-referencing and looking at the whole picture instead of just one chapter or one verse at a time. And I feel like that's where we're at now. Like we're looking at life
Mhm.
from a broader perspective and we're understanding that we're all unique and we all have a special purpose. So I think those of us that have kind of done that work of really embracing truly who we are from and maybe a non-judgmental way versus how we were raised. I feel like that's leading the way for people that are kind of waking up to that now. And with Aquarius energy, right? We're moving into this Pluto moving into Aquarius, the age of Aquarius, whatever you want to call it. And it's all about the uniqueness. So I feel like
Mhm.
there's so much there of really I think that's probably one of the hardest things for me was really embracing who I was, embracing the gifts that I have, because again, with the Christian background that I had, we just didn't talk about it. My mom knew, a couple of my grandma, my aunt, a couple of people knew, but we just didn't ever talk about it.
Mhm.
And so embracing that for myself was probably one of the hardest things that I had to do because it wasn't normal. It didn't fit
Yeah.
into a box. And then even in the spiritual community, they would be like, well, which Claire do you have? And I would be like, what do you mean, which one? You know what I mean? Like I could,
Yep.
all the Claires are, and then you would get ostracized for that. No, you have to have one. No, not really. You know what I mean? So there's all these different places where in the past, I think people would judge us for not quote unquote fitting into a mold. Whereas now we're really understanding we're not meant to. We are one mold.
Hmm.
You are the only one of you. I am the only one of me.
Hmm.
And so it's really understanding how to embrace our uniqueness. And I feel like that's where life coaching can be so powerful.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I actually had therapist one time look at me, and she was my favorite therapist I ever went to. I started out with her as a life coach, and then life happened, and the universe always provides what we want, what we need, right? And so she actually was experienced in all of these things that kept coming into my life. So she just turned into my full-time therapist at the time. But one of the sayings that she used on a regular basis was look at every experience from a non-judgmental perspective, like a non-judgmental curiosity. That was the way she said it. And so since then, everything that's happened, whether it's when I'm working with a client and maybe they have an experience that I haven't had in the spiritual realm, I look at it with this non-judgmental curiosity, right? Or we think about, oh my goodness, this big thing happened in my life and it's horrible, whether it's a death or a divorce or a whatever, a loss of a job. And I'm like, oh, that's awful. Well, is it? Where's my non-judgmental curiosity in that, right? To help me see the different perspective and how I'm supposed to respond and learn from it, right? And that's definitely what therapy and coaching has brought into my life that I really enjoy giving to others as well. Especially with all of the changes, like you said, there are so many changes right now happening, and I'm seeing so many practitioners and spiritualists, if you will, say, well, it's been done this way for thousands of years. And I'm like, it has, and we're waking up to new levels. So
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be done the same way it was always done. So again, that's why I'm so grateful that I was given that tool of non-judgmental curiosity years ago, right?
Yeah.
To use
Yeah, I
today.
I love that the curiosity. I think that word is so powerful because
Yes.
we tend to give everybody else grace, but we don't give ourselves grace, right? Like
Yes.
we're so like, oh, just accepting of everybody else. When it comes to ourselves, we tend to be really hard on ourselves, or at least most of the women that I work with end up being really hard on themselves. So
Mm-hmm.
when you can look at your own stuff from curiosity and observation instead of judgment, it makes a huge difference. And
Yes.
as far as the way things have always done, is that really though? Like, because there's a new level. Like, we get stuck in this thing. Well, we've always done it this way. Well, but for how long have you done it that way? Like 100 years? Like, that's really
Yeah.
nothing, right? So there's this energy that I've been feeling coming through, and it's been like the last couple of years that I've been feeling it, but it's like we're returning to ancient wisdom. And I
Yes.
think ancient wisdom brings us simplicity that we
Mm.
haven't experienced in so many generations because we've got stuck in this is how we do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
I really love this idea of the ancient wisdom coming back. And so when people say, well, we've always done it that way, well, maybe that's true. Maybe that's how you've been taught the last few generations. But if we go back to ancient wisdom, how is that different? And if we drop even that and be if we were just to create it now, how would it be? What would be the
Mm-hmm.
best way to do it? And so there's this whole new level, I feel like, of inspiration, of creativity, of just creation in general. Like there's a new energy available with the
Mm-hmm.
foundation of the simplicity, which I feel like is the ancient wisdom, being in natural rhythm, trusting the cycles, understanding that this sounds, I just kind of heard like the circle of life, like the Lion King thing,
Yes.
where there's this beautiful circle of life where we embrace and understand and the things that we might judge as being bad or hard
Mm-hmm.
to go through, if we understand that from the more circle of life perspective and that curiosity and that observation, it there's a depth to it that I think the ancient wisdom understood that we've kind of gotten away from because we've gotten so used to either bypassing or
Mm-hmm.
sugarcoating or
Mm-hmm.
avoiding altogether.
Yes.
Right? So there's all of those
Yes.
things coming into play. And I think we're at a point to where people that do the work like you and I do, like we're going to be needed because I feel like so many people are like, okay, I can't keep avoiding it or I can't keep
Mm-hmm.
bypassing it. I really need to learn how to process this in a
Mm-hmm.
way that's healthy. And I think that's also why we're seeing so many energy healers. Reiki healers, even like it's so funny. I have to giggle every time I see somebody going, "Oh, the somatic practices are so great." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's called breathing." Or the fascia release. I'm like, "Yeah, that's called stretching and yoga." I mean, there's so many things that and I'm not trying to poo-poo any of it because I'm all for all of it. Like
Yes,
fascia
yes.
release is so powerful,
It's
but I'm also like
amazing.
it's not new.
Yes.
Like everybody's, oh, this new thing. I'm like, no, it's
No.
ancient. It's ancient. It's just we've forgotten. So I'm
Yes.
really excited about all that stuff coming back. And I know you do energy work, and we kind of
Hmm.
bridged over the idea of Reiki. Um, I think you and I see this so similarly that it's hard to explain energy work and people understand the word
Hmm.
Reiki. So when you're working with the energy, how does it show up for you?
It's a great question because, I use the term Reiki because obviously I was attuned. I went through the process. I went through the energy attunements from a master that, has a lineage, and that's very special to me. I wanted to do that. And at the same time, I've always had the gift of working with energy. And it's always come to me in its own unique way. So while, yes, I may use the symbols to speed up or slow down energy for a client, and or work distance or however it is that I'm using the tools that I was taught during the Reiki attunement, the energy comes to me differently for each and every client. So I may feel heat, I may feel cold, as I'm working, I may feel vibration in my hands. And as I'm feeling all of those things, I'm also intuitively getting messages from the universe and God and my guides as to what that feeling means.
Mm,
Right. So, for me, when I'm working with energy, I can identify whether it's a physical ailment or whether there's a spiritual component or an emotional component, which I know kind of sound like oxymorons to those of us who work in the energy world, right? Because everything starts on
mm,
an energetic level and an emotional level and then goes to physical. However, to translate that to a human client, I can identify the levels at which that client's experiencing that dis-ease, if you will.
mm,
So it comes to me differently. And something interesting that's happened fairly recently is I'm also starting to see the soul body as well, not just the physical body. So another way that the energy is coming to me is I actually see it's almost like a holograph, kind of like in those sci-fi movies where you see a touch screen, only it's transparent. And
mm.
so I'll see the soul body come up, and all of a sudden I'm just told to move, and work with different parts of the body and the chakras and everything else. So yes, I work with the ancient Reiki practice and am very aware that the guides in the universe are giving me other tools on an energetic level to work with the clients based on what they need. So
Right,
even that's evolving, right?
right.
And I think some of that's happening because the veil is thinning. So we have access
Mhm.
to the different levels, which is just fascinating and exciting.
That's so true. Like we've talked about this in Ascension Club multiple
Mhm.
times about how in the last couple of years, like even those of us that have been doing gifts or had our gifts and been doing the energy work and all of this for years, there's new things coming and different things
Yes.
coming in and we're being able to see more deeply or more clearly, or there's a different way to do things and it's all from the intuition, but I think it is because the veil is lifting. And so uh,
Mhm.
the access that we have is so much easier than it used to
Yes.
be. And well, I don't want to say easier because it's more clear and more clean. I feel like it doesn't necessarily make it easy because if you get in your own way about second guessing it, but if you're
Yeah.
I always teach God first, right? So God,
Yes.
source, spirit, universe, and then from there, that's where the work is clean and clear from, right? And
Hmm.
and at the same time, just like you're talking about, having that respect and the reverence for the modality, the way that it's been taught, the way it's been passed down, that there's a reverence because there's a respect for that because they've
Yeah.
done what they needed to do to hold that and keep it, in integrity. And at the
Yes.
same time, allowing intuition to guide you in different ways of doing it. And
Yes.
I totally understand what you're talking about. I, whenever I talk about seeing spirit, everybody's like, well, how do you see it? Is it like, and I'm like, do you remember? And this makes me, you can tell how nerdy I am about Star Wars. Like, do you remember in Star Wars where R2D2 comes up and he like flashes
Yes.
Princess Leia's in the thing? That's how it looks for me. It's like
Yes.
this holographic image that's been, on the screen that's available. So that's how I see as well. So it's
Yeah.
interesting when other people see that way too. But I love it. Um,
Yes.
and the energy work, even within itself, is changing too,
Hmm.
because of as humanity, as we raise our vibration, the vibration of everything raises. And so
Yes.
it does allow for different experiences to come through and deeper healing, I think, as
Hmm.
well to come through.
Yes. Yes. And for me, it's not just deeper healing, but one of the things you were talking about as far as, yes, the deeper healing is huge. And when working with clients and talking with people, even if they're not a client, right? Just being
Mhm.
of
Yes, yes.
service and talking to people, I am noticing that people are going deeper. And then I'll go back to the other thing I was thinking about. But I'm like you, I've got so many different ideas running through my head. So as far as the healing goes, I'm hearing a lot of people talk about, oh my goodness, I thought I already dealt with this, right? Whether it's past trauma, whether it's getting over, the death of a loss of a loved one, whether it's, any type of just change in their lives where they may have had to go through a grieving process. They're like, I thought I did all this work. Yes, you did. And guess what? As you ascend, you get to tap into that at a different level.
Mhm.
So you're going to experience some of that all over again to heal at that new level, right?
Mhm.
So that is happening and it's really interesting. And what I'm finding also interesting about that process is sometimes just the awareness of it is the healing. Like it's
Mhm.
not this long, drawn out, torturous, oh my goodness, I've got to talk about it in four different therapy sessions and cry about it and write about it to get it out anymore. We don't necessarily have to go through all of that work. There's still work to be done, but sometimes, like I said, just the awareness of it is
Mhm.
what we need for the healing.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's been fascinating too. And I've experienced that myself because just because I'm a healer, right, and I work with people and I'm a coach, doesn't mean that I don't go through my own stuff still, right?
Yeah.
I'm still healing. I'm still going through new awarenesses. Um, which actually, funny enough, leads me into the other thing I was going to mention when you were talking about things are getting clearer, right? Because the veil is thinning. One of the things that I'm finding is while I love sitting in meditation and getting quiet, which I do, I'm finding that I can be doing the dishes and I'll get an answer just come to me. Or I'll be getting ready to go to a client and all of a sudden I get information about that client,
Mhm.
right? And I'm just in my bathroom getting ready for the morning, right? So it's again, we're able to tap into more information more quickly right now.
Yep. I
So,
agree
and I
with that.
love that. I love
Um,
that.
so I used to explain this like if it was a dial on the radio, right? Like let's
Yeah.
go back, old fashioned, like where you had to actually turn the dial to the radio or push the button to get to the next station,
Yep.
whatever you want to talk about. But like if we were operating as humans on like 88.7 and that was the channel, but we wanted to, you know, tap into the energy and the frequency of angels and guides, we would have to turn the dial. And so we would sit in meditation and raise our vibration so that we
Yes.
happened to 92.5 so that we could hear the angels. And if we wanted to, go in a little higher, you would tune in a little higher. And if you wanted to get into theta, you would turn into like 100.7 or, you would dial into the frequency that you wanted to allow yourself to be in. And a lot of us needed that
Oh,
quiet deep
yes.
meditation in order to raise the frequency, but the overall frequency of the collective is raised enough that that's a lot easier. So
Yes.
how I teach that now is I call that constant, when you're in constant communion with your guides and angels, you
Mhm.
still have to set up the boundary, the intention, you have to have discernment. But when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is my prayer and meditation, and I set the intention that I am connected with my guides, angels, God, source, spirit, universe. And then you have that constant communion throughout the day. Now, if you're new to it, you might need to practice a little bit. And so you might need a meditation where you're
Yes.
sitting there and you're getting clear with it and you get familiar with how it feels. And you don't want to do that while you're driving a vehicle, right? You want to get familiar with what that's like. But once you've done
Yes.
that so much, it becomes muscle memory. You know what it feels like to be in that constant being able to quote unquote channel or feel the energy or be in that space where you're connected to your guides and angels. And I feel like,
Yes.
again, you don't want to do that from day one because you want to have the discernment. You want to have the
Absolutely.
clarity. You want to know what you're tapping
Yes.
into. However, for those of us that have been doing this for 15, 20 years, it's like you know what it feels like now. It's a muscle memory thing that you've understood. So if you're just learning, no harm, no foul. Take your time,
Yeah.
do the meditation, get yourself quiet, begin to discern the way it feels and understand for yourself how connection to God, source, spirit, universe feels to you. And then
Yes.
you'll be in a space to where it just comes like second nature. And I feel like a
Yes.
lot of us that have been doing that work for a long time, that's what it is now. It's literally some of the interference has been cleared, although there's always little ebbs and flows with spiritual attack. And I don't want to get all into the negative or
Yeah.
whatever, but you do need to be aware and have some discernment because there are times, again,
Hmm.
those of us that have been doing it for a while, we're like,
Oh
ooh,
yeah.
something doesn't feel right. Let me do some clearing here. Let me do some energy work. Let
Oh
me clear
yes.
this space. But again, if you're new to it, take your time, get familiar, and go from there. And then for those of you that have been doing this for a minute, if you feel like it's um, almost like second nature too easy. I think that was another thing that I've dealt with some of the people that have been doing it for
Hmm.
a long time. They're like, I just feel like I can't get into meditation. I'm like, you're trying too hard. Literally, that's it. You're trying.
Yes.
But we were so used to having to stretch for it and try for it. And so
Yes.
it definitely feels a little bit different.
Absolutely. And I appreciate in the Ascension Club, we were talking at one point about either in the Ascension Club or the Mastermind, we were talking about, how sometimes for those of us who've been doing this for so many years, and we're trying to put content out there and we're trying to help people, right? We think that what we're putting out there is boring and basic and doesn't align with us anymore. And we really don't, we're like, why are we doing that? Like, why am I still doing mindfulness and meditation workshops? Why am I still, doing abundance and prosperity workshops? Why am I still doing? Well, it's because number one, I still need the reminder, right? Because if I get way too far up there, I'm going to forget, right? And I still need to exist in this world, and work with people. And at the same time, I believe one of my main purposes of being here was as I'm an early indigo. Like I know that I was one of the first, waves in before all of the others came so that I could pave the way. So part of my job is to translate the old earth into the new earth, and I do that by helping others raise their vibration. And I have to start where they are. I have to meet them where they are. So we still teach those tools. We still teach those modalities. We still use them when we need them as well. Um, but yeah, I think it's really important to start where you are, you
Right.
know?
Well, and
So
I love what you said, and this is something that I am so passionate about is the integrity of it and what you said about I still need the reminder. One of
yeah.
the things that I can tell you right away, whether it's a self-growth journey, whether it's a business journey, whether it's a spiritual journey, if you walk into the room and think, "Oh, I've already heard this,"
Hmm.
girl, no.
Uh-huh.
You will glean something. I don't care how many times I've heard the same thing. Every time you
Yes.
hear it, if you're open, if
Yes.
you're coachable, if you're willing, if you want to make changes, if you're refining yourself, if you're trying to improve your life, you can hear it 50 times and maybe that 51st time it will spur something new.
Yes.
Right? There's always another level. And it's kind of like what you talked about with the healing, the cycles of the healing, right? Like I
Hmm.
kind of imagine it like a spiral staircase. Like, yes, we're growing and yes, we're learning, but there's still things that we'll circle back to, but we'll
Hmm.
see it from a new perspective, or we'll understand it from a deeper way, or it'll hit
Yeah.
differently that time or whatever. So I that's one of my biggest pet peeves is when people say, "Oh, I've already done this," or "I've already heard this," or "I already know that."
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yes.
do you want to grow or do you, do you not want to grow? Right? Like so the
Yes.
basics to me, if I ever feel stuck, I go back to the basics
Mm-hmm.
because that's what's going to
100%.
clear the way. And there's no
Yes.
judgment in that, no harm in that. And that then it goes into the whole thing of being able to observe yourself, right? And not
Hmm.
judging where you are and not judging other people where they are. And that's why I always say it doesn't matter where you're at on your journey. We're just glad you're here.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so, but really be aware of yourself if you ever say,
Hmm.
I feel like anybody that says, I've already heard this or I've already done this or okay, but then what are you missing? Because it's coming back around for a reason, I feel like. And again, no judgment. Some people are, that's where they're at and that's where they're going to be. So I try to
Yeah.
say that from a loving way, but also in a way to encourage you, like, okay, but do you want to go deeper? Let's see if you can go a little bit more deeper. Let's see what kind of juicy experience you can get out of this lifetime. Because I'm telling you, of all of the times in history that we could have incarnated, this is a
Oh
really
my
important time to
God.
be here. So
It really is. It's crazy.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
I know you offer life coaching, and I know you mentioned we'll put all the links just so that everybody
Okay.
knows all the links to be able to find you on your socials and find out what classes you have coming and what
Thank
coaching
you.
programs you have available and all of those kind of things. But let's go into a little bit more kind of on the life coaching side because I feel like that's really important right now too. I'm seeing so
It
many
is.
people who are in this really weird like transition of life that
Hmm.
and it is because we've ne life will never be the same was something that I channeled a few years ago and I know you've had very similar
Yes.
messages. Like life
Yes.
is not the same.
Mm-mm.
So everybody's like,
Mm-mm.
"But now what do we do? Like, what do we do now?"
Well, it's interesting because, and I was actually just speaking with some people about this yesterday. Uh, you know, my life coaching is not a cookie cutter program, right? Yes, I have packages because some people want to buy more sessions at a lower rate. So, yes, I have all of that. But all of my coaching sessions, they start off with like a 30-minute consultation where we identify exactly what we're going to work on for this series of sessions. But then after that, it's completely and totally personalized and customized as I go because I'm not the one that has the answers for you. You have the answers. So my job as a coach is to ask the hard questions and to ask the questions to help you dig deep to find your own answers. And what I'm finding is, even though I'm calling it life coaching, a lot of my clients that come to me really are needing to start with their relationship with spirit, God, universe, right? Whatever you want to call that. And I feel really lucky that I was raised, in the Christian church. I was raised in the Lutheran church and I was raised around all of that, not my family, but through parochial schools. And so I had this personal relationship with God and Jesus growing up. And then in my 20s, I studied all the other religions as well. And so I get to translate. So it doesn't matter to me who people are or what they believe. Let's get you to whatever that is so that you have your foundation so that you can then grow from there. Because if you want to grow in your job, if you want to grow in your relationships, if you want to grow, in your own relationship with yourself and your health and your well-being, you got to have somewhere to go to rely on to help you with that. And that's not a human reliance. It can't be because we as humans are fallible.
Mhm.
So it's really important to me that everybody has their own journey, and I'm not dictating that. I'm asking the questions to help you discover that.
Mhm.
And that's really what my coaching is about. Because if I can help you find the answers within you, you start to trust you start to be more accountable, you start to show up more authentically, and then your dreams start to come true,
Mhm.
you know? And I know I just made that sound really easy.
And it's so funny because I feel like that too. Like you say, "Oh, your dreams get true. You can live a life you love," and it
Oh my
sounds
God.
so cliche, but it's so like it. But if you've done it, you
Yeah.
realize how true it is, and it so it
Yeah.
does sound cliche when you're not and when you haven't experienced it yet. But that's really
Yes.
the place. And I know you and I talk about this as well. Like for me, I call that the God spark because we have a
Yes.
divine peace within us, a divine light. And
Yes.
that if you're disconnected from that, then the rest of it is so much harder. But if you can
Hmm.
find that divine connection within, then
Yes.
that's when life starts to get a little bit easier and you start, I mean, especially, in the beginning, there's still some bumps that you got to work through and whatever, but it
Oh
becomes
yeah.
so much easier to navigate because, again, another cliche, or, instead of, I feel like instead of saying, we're spirits having a human experience. I feel like it's the other way around. I feel like we are spirit beings having a human experience instead of the other way around. I don't know if I
Yes.
said that backwards or not, but like we're having this human experience and it's really odd compared to what it feels like in spiritual reality.
It is.
So it's being able to navigate both. And I feel like for so many years, right, back all the years
Hmm.
prior till now, I feel like that was so separate.
It
And
was.
and again,
Yes.
part of that veil lifting is really allowing us to understand on a visceral level and
Yes.
on a mental level and an emotional level just how tied we are of being spiritual beings in this human earth plane
Hmm.
and really experiencing it from that level.
Yes.
Instead of the I'm only human. Yeah, that
Yeah.
back then that made sense. But I feel like now we really need to embrace and understand that spiritual piece of us and how
Yes.
integral that is in the experience, especially moving forward.
Well, because we can't ignore it anymore. I mean,
Mm.
people who have never had spiritual experiences, right? And I'm going to use air quotes for
Right.
that. People who have never experienced that are talking, going back to how we started this whole conversation, right? They're talking about energy. They're talking about how things feel. I can't tell you how many times I see on social media people talking about timeline jumps. 5 years ago, if you had said that, people would have put you in a loony bin. You know what I mean? Like people just weren't talking about these things mainstream. And they're
Yeah,
being discussed much more mainstream because the integration is happening. We can't ignore it.
can't ignore it. Yeah, there's
No,
too
we
many
just
things. Yeah.
can't. Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I just saw what time it was, so we need to get
Sure.
ready to wrap this up.
Sure.
Before I forget, thank you everybody for coming in and thank you, Lynn, for being here. But if you were to leave, and this is where I'm putting you on the spot, if you were to leave everybody with like one thing today, one thought, one idea, one mantra, one affirmation, something like that, what would you leave them with today?
Okay, I'm going to cheat and give you two.
Okay.
One is all of the answers are inside.
Mhm.
Everything you ever wanted or ever needed or ever looked for is already inside of you. You just have to tap into it. And the other thing is, sounds so cliche, but love really truly is the answer.
Mm.
Love is the highest vibration. And without being toxically positive, you know,
I think there's
when
a
in doubt,
misconception around love though, too, right? Because
yes.
love is not this airy fairy,
Mm-mm.
romance stories and Cinderella stories and all that crap that's in the
No.
movies. Love is so much deeper than that. And it
Yes.
doesn't always, it's not always sunshine and rainbows. But
Yes.
love, the unconditional love that we're being asked to, the Christ consciousness love
Yes.
that we're being asked to hold isn't airy fairy. It is constant,
Yes.
you know, relentless almost, right?
It
Like
is. It
there's this,
is.
it's just this overwhelming love, and it's not what we think of as love, which is why I think some people get
Mm-mm.
triggered by that. And I'm going to laugh and tell you if her saying that the answers are within you are it either ruffles your feathers or gives you an aha moment. That's great. The aha moment, great, fantastic. If it ruffled your feathers, that's the work. Because
Yes.
because that's showing you there's something there that you need to like I don't want to say dig out, but there's something within that. If it's ruffling your feathers, there's a reason that that's hitting you. So,
Mm.
because it's true, and
It
of
is.
course, this is why we need community. This is why we need coaches. This is why
Yes.
we need healers, because it is so much easier to find that and bring that out for yourself if you have help. Right?
Yes.
It's not always easy to do that
100%.
work on. You can do it on your own.
Mm-mm.
I just don't recommend it.
No,
There's too many
I'd really
people
rather
available
not.
right now to help that can help you with that stuff. So thank you,
Yes.
Lynn, for coming on today. I appreciate
Oh,
you so much. Again, everybody,
thank
thank you for
you.
being here. We'll put all of her links below and let us know if you have questions. Thanks again, and we'll see everybody
Thank you.
soon.